Welcome to the Ben Daniel podcast, where we're calling a spade after missing a wide open layup that would have sent game one of the WNBA finals into double overtime. After missing a wide open free throw attempt that would have won game one of the WNBA finals for the New York Liberty, a game in which they ultimately lost, Breanna Stewart reveals that her wife received death threats via email. Death threats that were taken so seriously that they actually wound up filing a report with the New York Police Department. Folks, in case you guys missed it, an anonymous troll sent a vicious anti-gay email to the wife of WNBA player Breanna Stewart, and it's apparently not the first time. Stewart's wife, former pro basketball player Marta Casademont, walked into the New York Police Department's 78th precinct in Brooklyn on Thursday to report the heinous email which said, "I hope someone shoots your wife dead. F you, you know what. I hope you both die," among other things police sources said. Sources added that a memo by NBA Security said the email was sent from an internet address that has been associated with other hateful missives, including death threats, bomb threats, and more racist rhetoric. Now, this was reported by the New York Post, but also Breanna Stewart made an appearance on NBA Today speaking about that matter. Now, what we're going to listen to is Malika Andrews set up Breanna Stewart. Breanna Stewart's going to respond. And then the second question, I want everybody to pay very close attention to what Malika Andrews says, and then I will walk us down memory lane. I will provide receipts. I will provide proof as to, after a year of brainwashing fans, after a year of brainwashing supporters, how what Malika Andrews said, how she set up her second question, comes back and will haunt a particular fan base. Let's take a listen.
Breanna, thank you as always so much for making the time. And when we set this interview a couple of days ago, right, the intention was to dive into the series, and we will certainly do that. But this week it was reported that your wife, Marta, received a threatening and homophobic email. What happened there?
Yeah, it came after the game one loss. And, sometimes people are taking things a little bit too far and too out of context. And Marta had gotten homophobic death threats. A few other things have happened, but just making sure that we're doing as much as possible to continue to aware or make sure that our team and the league is aware of the situation and continue to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, this is in light of a very public discussion right now this season surrounding the level of racism, of homophobia, of hate that players are receiving. What do you say to one another when this happens?
I think what we say to one another is, inside of this league, it's kind of like, why is this happening? Because we are the most inclusive league in all of professional sports, and I can say that with confidence. But there's no place for hate, homophobic racism. We want to continue to make sure that not only am I using this platform to make sure that we're keeping it consistent and really putting the pressure on, the league to keep us safe, but knowing this is happening not only in this league, but really around the world, and it's unacceptable.
Yes, around the world, players are receiving death threats around the world. I agree. Football players, football coaches, baseball players, baseball coaches, basketball players, basketball coaches, soccer players, soccer coaches, cricket players, cricket coaches, rugby players, rugby coaches, UFC fighters, UFC trainers are receiving death threats around the world. Because there are trolls out there that will take it to that next level online. There are trolls out there that will take it to that next level online. But I do say, if you are receiving death threats and you feel that adamant that it is something serious, by all means, go to the police. Now let's hear that one more time And what we want to listen in on is how Malika Andrews phrases this question right here, and then it's go time.
This is in light of a very public discussion right now this season surrounding the W, the level of racism, of homophobia, of hate that players are receiving. What do you say to one another when this happens?
Now, this is a bigger part of a large discussion about players receiving racial remarks, about players receiving homophobic comments in their direction, slander in their direction. Now, folks, this is what I'm talking about here. And let me know in the comment section if I'm reaching or if I'm just reading between the lines. Let's use our brain for a second, shall we, guys? If you followed this season as an adamant watcher, as a supporter, as a fan, the conversation about racism and homophobia that Malika Andrews is talking about, what fan base, what group of people has been labeled as those? What fan base, what group of people have been talked about as those are the people that are sending racial threats in our direction? That's the fan base that's sending homophobic comments in our direction. That's the person who has a fan base of misogynists, this, that, and the third. What group of people? Now, we know the answer on this channel. But now let's say you're not an avid follower. Let's say you're somebody who wants to watch NBA Today because, you're an NBA fan, and here they are plopping WNBA nonsense on your desk. So now you're curious, what is all this racial conversation that they're talking about? What is Malika Andrews talking about? Racism, homophobia going on within the WNBA? What could they possibly be talking about? Folks, this is a search. WNBA fans, racism. Excuse my favorite of a default. I'm looking at some lawn care products, but let's stay on focus. As we scroll this page, we see Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever. Why WNBA fans are calling out racism in the league. Much of the current uptick in overt racism has come with Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark's entry into the W. Clark, who is white. Caitlin Clark sends strong message to racist WNBA fans. WNBA players say the troubling side of its rise is racism and threats. WNBA players are feeling jealous of Clark's stardom. Called out by Alyssa Thomas. WNBA players speak out after Kathy Engelbert fails to condemn racist fans. Connecticut Sun star Alyssa Thomas specifically called out fans of the Indiana Fever for making racist remarks. This is just the first page. Now let's go to the second page, shall we? Caitlin Clark speaks out. Another picture of Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark denounces racist fans' behavior. Cheryl Swoops is right. Black people can't be racist. WNBA discourse brims racist. Caitlin Clark is a lightning rod. Caitlin Clark slams trolls. Caitlin Clark condemned racist trolls. So if you're an outsider looking in, what fan base are you thinking is responsible for a lot of the racial hate and the racial conversation surrounding the W? Caitlin Clark fans, right? Indiana Fever fans, right? So after a whole season of painting a picture that only a certain fan base has these remarks, And then Malika Andrews is going to double back and ask Breanna Stewart a question framed like that. What kind of picture does that paint for you? Remember, folks, in WNBA world, none of this existed before this year, even though numerous players has come out and said, no, racism's been along. Racism's been around. But only the media wants to talk about this year. The fans of a certain franchise this year. Only the media wants to talk about the nonsense of Dejanay Carrington talking about how one cannot be bothered by their name being used to justify racism, bigotry, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia. Silence is a luxury. The WNBA only wants to talk about her fans, right? The Indiana Fever have the nastiest fans in the W. That's what they want to talk about, right? We got Asia Wilson saying she dreads being in Indiana because things might just pop off because they're so deadly. Look at that killer right there. Can you pass along a message to Asia for me? Tell her to stay out of Indy or shit's gonna pop off. WNBA says it won't tolerate racism after Alyssa Thomas calls the league out. No place for it. This is an article. Gee, when did this take place? Social media during its WNBA playoff series against the Indiana Fever, I'm so surprised. Yet the WNBA media is going to be quiet about this, right? Caitlin Clark exhibiting school shooter behavior, right? ESPN's they're going to slide Holly Rowe's comments underneath the rug. The same thing is happening to Caitlin. I don't think she has been as vocal about the death threats she has gotten and the negativity that she's getting on social media. Nobody wants to talk about it when it's Caitlin Clark. Nobody wants to talk about it when it's other fans directing things at Caitlin Clark. We only want to talk about it when we can frame it in a certain way that puts down a certain fan base. Why is that? That doesn't go with the flow, does it? That doesn't go along with the script, does it? Now, of course, this wasn't an Indiana Fever fan, a Caitlin Clark fan. This might have been a New York Liberty fan. Might not have just been a troll like I've been saying all video. It could have been a New York Liberty fan saying this. But we don't want to condemn those fans, do we? Now it's just a random person on Twitter. Now it's just a random person sending an email. But when it's the other way around, it's that person's fans. It's that team's fan base. Again, you spend all season painting a picture. So by the time you have a real conversation about something that really transpired, a first search will bring you to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. If somebody is actually curious about what's going on, the first search is Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Condemning Caitlin Clark's fans. Condemning Caitlin Clark's supporters. When in reality, we're just talking about trolls. When in reality, we're just talking about sickos that want to say what they want online. It's the Ben Daniel Podcast, where we're calling a spade again, folks. There hasn't been racial and homophobic discourse this year in the WNBA. I'm sorry to let you guys know. There's been a certain group getting targeted, getting labeled as being racist and homophobic. That's what it's been. So now all these other fans can just sneakily get in their shots and we can blame it on those people. Now, Malika, you might not have meant to have it come out that way, but that's how it came out. That's why it's careful. That's why you need to choose your words carefully. That's why you can't spend all season gaslighting and BSing and lying. Because when you do maybe make a mistake, I'm here to say, wait a second. That's not really what's been going on. That's not really the truth of the situation. That's not the fact of the matter. It's the Ben Daniel Podcast, where we're calling a spade a spade. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I appreciate all of the support. As always, take it easy.